Let's start with a simple truth. Women with a queen mindset don't just exist, they lead. They don't follow the fleeting opinions of others. They are the architects of their own lives, and in doing so, they create a standard that demands respect. Now, the first thing they never do is sacrifice their self-respect for approval. There's a temptation in every relationship to bend, to mute, to soften in ways that make others comfortable. But a queen understands that her self-respect is non-negotiable. When she allows approval to dictate her actions, she betrays herself. And trust me, no meaningful connection can survive when one of you is compromised at the core. The second thing she never does is compromise her dreams or ambitions. A queen knows that love is not about giving up. It's about expanding together. She does not dim her light so someone else can shine brighter. She expects to grow and rise in tandem with a partner who genuinely supports her vision. And when a man can't celebrate her victories without envy or insecurity, she doesn't fight to keep him. She lets him go because ambition without alignment is a wasted investment of her energy. Next, she never tolerates disrespect or emotional manipulation. It's easy to confuse attention for affection, criticism for guidance, or control for care. A woman with a queen mindset sees clearly. She recognizes the subtle patterns that erode her confidence, and she removes herself before the erosion becomes irreversible. She doesn't waste her time explaining boundaries to someone unwilling to respect them. She speaks her truth and moves with dignity, because dignity is the framework of her power. Fourth, she never loses her sense of identity. In relationships, there is always the risk of merging too deeply, of allowing another person to define who you are. A queen maintains her individuality, her hobbies, her friendships, her passions. They are non-negotiable parts of her essence. She knows that losing herself is the fastest way to losing her voice. And without her voice, she can't contribute authentically to anyone else's life. Fifth, she never settles for someone who doesn't align with her values. Values are the compass of a meaningful life, and a queen refuses to wander without direction. She won't accept love that comes at the cost of her integrity, honesty, or emotional well-being. She understands that compatibility is deeper than attraction. It is a shared language of purpose and principles. Finally, she never waits for validation or permission to define her worth. Her confidence is not a reflection of someone else's acknowledgement. It is the product of her clarity, self-awareness, and relentless pursuit of growth. She steps into every room, every conversation, every relationship as a full expression of her own value. And in doing so, she naturally attracts those who honor her for who she is, not who they wish she could be. When you study a woman with this mindset, you notice a rhythm, a power that isn't loud but undeniable. It's not about control, it's about clarity. It's not about dominance, it's about understanding. And in a world that constantly tests her patience, her ambition, and her heart, she stands firm. She knows that the right partnerships are built on mutual respect, shared values, and the celebration of each other's greatness. Not compromise, not sacrifice, and certainly not silence. A queen doesn't just command attention, she inspires transformation. And that, more than anything else, is the true mark of her strength. A woman with a queen mindset understands something that many fail to grasp. Her self-respect is the foundation upon which everything else in her life is built. It is not negotiable. She recognizes that approval from others is fleeting, subjective, and often rooted in their own insecurities, rather than any objective truth about her worth. She does not bend, twist, or compromise her principles to gain acceptance or favor. When she interacts with a man, she carries herself with a quiet confidence that comes from an unwavering understanding of her value. She knows that if she allows someone else to dictate how she should feel, act, or think, she loses something far more significant than the temporary comfort of approval. She loses herself. Many people confuse love or affection with validation. They believe that if someone else applauds them, they are worthy. If someone criticizes, they are failing. But a queen sees through this illusion. She understands that approval is external, and external validation is unreliable. It can fluctuate, shift, or disappear entirely based on circumstances outside of her control. A man may praise her today and neglect her tomorrow, yet her worth remains unchanged. She does not measure herself by another's words, and she does not allow flattery or judgment to define her identity. In her world, self-respect is an internal compass, not a reflection in someone else's eyes. This mindset creates a powerful boundary. She will not tolerate behavior that undermines her dignity. Whether it's manipulation, criticism, or passive-aggressive attempts to control her, she recognizes these as red flags. She doesn't argue to prove her worth, nor does she seek to justify herself. Instead, she calmly and decisively removes herself from situations where respect is absent. This is not arrogance or pride. It is a conscious choice to protect her emotional and psychological well-being. She knows that compromising her self-respect for someone else's comfort or ego is a betrayal, and she refuses to engage in it. A queen's refusal to sacrifice her self-respect also influences the way she communicates and negotiates within a relationship. She speaks her truth clearly and unapologetically, setting expectations and boundaries without fear of rejection or disapproval. She understands that a healthy relationship is not about winning approval, but about mutual respect. If a man cannot meet her with honesty, integrity, and regard for her boundaries, she does not attempt to mold herself to fit his preferences. She recognizes that bending to someone else's will is not love. It is a form of self-erasure, and she refuses to erase herself for anyone. Furthermore, her self-respect is deeply intertwined with her sense of purpose. She knows that her ambitions, dreams, and values are integral parts of who she is, and she will not sacrifice them for the comfort of a man who cannot align with them. If she feels pressured to abandon her goals or diminish her capabilities to maintain a relationship, she recognizes this as a form of control or containment that she cannot accept. She seeks partnerships that celebrate her growth rather than hinder it, understanding that respect for her autonomy is a prerequisite for any meaningful connection. Ultimately, a woman with a queen mindset demonstrates through her actions that self-respect is not optional, it is essential. She sets the standard, not through confrontation, but through consistency and clarity. She does not rely on anyone to validate her worth because she has already claimed it for herself. She moves through life with integrity, making choices that honor her value and refusing anything that compromises it. In doing so, she not only protects herself from harm, but also teaches others how to honor her fully, creating relationships grounded in equality, respect, and genuine admiration. Her self-respect is her superpower. It is invisible to those who underestimate it, yet undeniable in its impact. By refusing to sacrifice it for approval, she establishes a life where she is never diminished, never overlooked, and never undervalued. And that is the essence of a woman with a queen mindset. A woman with a queen mindset knows that her dreams, ambitions, and personal goals are not negotiable, and she will never compromise them for a man. She understands that her vision for her life is sacred, a reflection of her values, her passions, and the unique purpose she carries in the world. This awareness creates a clear boundary. She will not allow a relationship, no matter how emotionally compelling, to become a cage that limits her growth. She recognizes that love should never be a reason to shrink, to dim, or to settle for less than her full potential. To her, a partnership is meaningful only when it supports and amplifies her aspirations, not when it demands their sacrifice. Many women make the mistake of believing that compromising their ambitions is a small price to pay for love or security. They believe that if they achieve a man's approval or maintain his affection, they are succeeding in the relationship. But a woman with a queen mindset sees the long-term consequences of such choices. Sacrificing dreams for someone else's comfort is never an act of love. It is an act of surrender that erodes identity, self-worth, and ultimately happiness. She knows that in the absence of personal fulfillment, no relationship, no matter how intense, can provide lasting satisfaction or meaning. Her ambitions are deeply tied to her sense of self. They are not casual hobbies or fleeting interests. They are expressions of her core, her essence, and her potential. Whether she seeks career excellence, personal mastery, or creative fulfillment, she approaches her goals with commitment, discipline, and unwavering focus. She does not apologize for wanting more out of life. She does not silence her aspirations to accommodate someone else's limitations or fears. She understands that ambition is not a threat to love. It is the framework upon which strong, inspiring partnerships are built. A queen also understands the importance of alignment in relationships. She seeks a partner whose vision, values, and energy complement her own, rather than conflict with it. She knows that when a man feels threatened by her drive or accomplishments, it is not a reflection of her shortcomings. It is a reflection of his inability to embrace her fullness. She refuses to settle for a relationship in which her growth is constrained by jealousy, insecurity, or indifference. Instead, she cultivates connections where mutual encouragement, shared ambition, and collaborative progress are the standard. Moreover, a woman with a queen mindset recognizes that ambition requires sacrifice, but it is a sacrifice of comfort, not of integrity or vision. She is willing to invest time, energy, and resources into her dreams, understanding that the journey is as important as the destination. She also understands that anyone unwilling to support her journey, or worse, someone who attempts to derail it, does not deserve a place in her life. Her love and loyalty are given selectively, reserved for those who honor her purpose and celebrate her victories without envy or resentment. In practice, this means she communicates her goals clearly, sets boundaries to protect her time and focus, and refuses guilt or pressure to divert from her path. She does not use ambition as a weapon, nor does she manipulate relationships to serve her ends, but she also refuses to compromise her personal growth for the sake of someone else's comfort. Her pursuit of excellence is both her gift to herself and the standard she sets for anyone who seeks to share her life. Ultimately, a woman with a queen mindset teaches a powerful lesson. Love is not the absence of ambition. It is the amplification of it. She never diminishes herself to make someone else feel secure. She never settles for a life smaller than the one she envisions. Her dreams are sacred, her ambitions non-negotiable, and her relationships must honor both. In living this truth, she embodies the strength, clarity, and purpose that define a true queen. A woman with a queen mindset understands a fundamental truth. Respect is the lifeblood of any meaningful relationship, and she will never tolerate disrespect or emotional manipulation. She recognizes that these behaviors are not minor inconveniences or inevitable conflicts. They are signals, clear markers that the foundation of a relationship is being eroded. A queen does not excuse verbal jabs, passive-aggressive behavior, or dismissive attitudes under the guise of love, humor, or stress. She knows that to allow such treatment is to accept a diminished version of herself, and she refuses to compromise her dignity in exchange for temporary comfort or perceived stability. Respect to her is not just about polite words or surface-level courtesy. It is the recognition of her value, her autonomy, and her boundaries. She expects honesty, integrity, and accountability, not because she is demanding or unreasonable, but because these are the basic principles that allow a relationship to flourish. When a man speaks to her with condescension, controls her choices, or manipulates her emotions to get what he wants, she sees through it immediately. She understands that emotional manipulation is not a test of love. It is a strategy to control, diminish, or destabilize. And she refuses. Cease to participate in it for herself or anyone else. A queen's awareness of manipulation and disrespect is rooted in self-knowledge. She knows her worth and recognizes when someone is attempting to diminish it. She does not rationalize, minimize, or make excuses for harmful behavior. She does not tell herself, "He didn't mean it," or "I can handle this." She understands that tolerating disrespect, even in small doses, sets a precedent for much larger compromises later. She knows that respect is cumulative. The way she allows herself to be treated in the present shapes how she will be treated in the future. She refuses to allow even subtle erosion of her dignity. This mindset also shapes the way she communicates. She addresses disrespect with clarity, calmness, and assertiveness. She does not lash out in anger or use passive aggression to respond to manipulation. Instead, she articulates her boundaries clearly, identifying behaviors that are unacceptable and defining what she expects moving forward. And if those boundaries are ignored or violated, she does not negotiate or bargain with her integrity. She steps away. She knows that walking away is not a sign of weakness or loss. It is a declaration of self-respect, a demonstration that she values herself more than she fears confrontation or loneliness. A woman with a queen mindset also understands that respect is reciprocal. She offers it freely without expectation of reward, but she does not tolerate one-sided relationships. She does not invest her time, energy, or emotion into someone who cannot meet her with the same regard she gives. She recognizes that relationships are partnerships, not hierarchies, and that love without respect is not love. It is codependency, compromise, and often suffering. She refuses to accept anything less than mutual honor and consideration. Ultimately, her refusal to tolerate disrespect, and manipulation is not about rigid rules or defensiveness. It is about clarity, self-worth, and authenticity. She knows that love is most powerful when it is healthy, mutual, and built on a foundation of respect. She demonstrates that boundaries are not barriers, but pathways to stronger, more meaningful connections. She embodies the principle that the treatment she accepts is a reflection of how she values herself. By standing firm in her dignity, she teaches others how to engage with her fully, authentically, and honorably. She does not need to demand respect. It is drawn naturally to her because she exudes it, unwavering and non-negotiable. Her strength lies not in domination, but in her ability to remain grounded, clear, and self-respecting, no matter the circumstances. In this way, she cultivates relationships that are empowering, transformative, and deeply fulfilling relationships, worthy of a queen. A woman with a queen mindset never loses her sense of identity, even in the most intense or intimate of relationships. She understands that her individuality is not separate from love. It is essential to it. Too often, people believe that merging completely with another person is the ultimate expression of intimacy. They sacrifice their interests, passions, and personal goals to align with the desires of their partner, thinking that love requires complete absorption. But a queen knows that losing herself is not a demonstration of devotion. It is a quiet surrender that erodes the foundation of her strength and her ability to contribute authentically to any relationship. Her identity is composed of her values, her passions, her history, and her dreams. These are non-negotiable elements that define her uniqueness. She engages in relationships not to dissolve into someone else's expectations, but to share her completeness while embracing the uniqueness of her partner. She knows that a partnership built on erasure is fragile, unstable, and ultimately unsatisfying. In contrast, a woman who maintains her identity fosters a relationship grounded in mutual respect, admiration, and growth. She brings her whole self, not a diluted version, into every interaction. Maintaining her identity requires conscious effort and clarity. She invests time in her hobbies, her career, her friendships, and her personal development. She understands that these pursuits are not optional. They are the expression of her essence. Even when love is passionate and consuming, she ensures that she preserves the things that make her whole. She does not abandon her friends to please a partner, nor does she give up her professional or creative goals because someone else feels threatened by them. She is deliberate in protecting her sense of self because she knows that her authenticity is what makes her magnetic and indispensable in any relationship. A queen also recognizes the subtle ways in which identity can be compromised. Compromise is a natural part of any healthy relationship, but compromise should never require surrendering who she fundamentally is. She notices when a partner's preferences, insecurities, or expectations start to erode her autonomy. She is vigilant against manipulation disguised as love, control disguised as care, and dependency disguised as intimacy. She evaluates each decision through the lens of her identity, asking whether it honors her values, aligns with her goals, and preserves her integrity. If it does not, she chooses herself first, not selfishly, but wisely. Furthermore, by maintaining her identity, she sets a powerful example. She shows that love does not demand conformity or erasure. She demonstrates that two people can be deeply connected while remaining fully themselves. In doing so, she inspires her partner to maintain his own individuality, creating a dynamic in which both can thrive. She understands that the strength of a relationship is not measured by how much two people blend into one, but by how much each can grow, expand, and flourish while supporting the other's journey. Ultimately, a woman with a queen mindset knows that losing herself for love is the fastest way to lose everything she values. Identity is her anchor, her compass, and her power. She moves through relationships with confidence, clarity, and self-awareness, protecting her essence while contributing meaningfully to the life of her partner. She understands that intimacy does not require sacrifice of self. It requires the courage to bring her full self, unfiltered and unapologetic, into the shared space of love. By preserving her individuality, she cultivates relationships of depth, authenticity, and resilience. Her identity is not a barrier to connection. It is the gateway to it. And in this steadfast commitment to self, she embodies the true essence of a queen. A woman who loves fiercely but never loses herself in the process. A woman with a queen mindset never settles for someone who does not align with her values. She understands that values are not just preferences or passing ideals. They are the foundation of her character, the guiding principles that shape her decisions, her relationships, and her life. To compromise on these is not merely a minor concession. It is a surrender of her integrity, a step away from the life she has consciously chosen to live. She knows that love without alignment is fragile, temporary, and often painful. Settling for someone who conflicts with her core beliefs is not love. It is compromise masquerading as affection, and she refuses to participate in that illusion. Alignment for her is about more than agreement on surface-level issues. It is about the resonance of vision, principle, and purpose. She evaluates a relationship not merely on chemistry or attraction, but on whether the person she is with honors the values that define her. Does he respect honesty, integrity, and transparency? Does he encourage her growth and celebrate her achievements? Does he approach life with a similar sense of purpose and responsibility? If the answer is no, she does not ignore it, rationalize it, or hope it will change. She understands that misalignment in core values is like building a house on sand. It may stand for a while, but it cannot withstand the storms of life. A queen also recognizes that values are non-negotiable because they define the quality of her experiences and relationships. She knows that someone who consistently acts in ways that contradict her principles will inevitably create conflict, stress, and disappointment. Compromising on values may seem like an expedient solution in the moment, but it erodes trust, respect, and emotional safety over time. She refuses to settle for this because she knows that her peace, her dignity, and her long-term happiness are far more valuable than any temporary comfort or companionship. This discernment extends to every aspect of her life, including love, friendship, and collaboration. She carefully observes actions, not words, understanding that true alignment is demonstrated through consistent behavior, integrity, and shared priorities. A man may profess love, admiration, or commitment, but if his actions contradict her values, she sees it clearly. She does not cling to empty promises or hope that alignment will magically appear. She trusts her intuition and judgment, knowing that a mismatch in values is a fundamental incompatibility. Moreover, a woman with a queen mindset understands that settling for someone who does not align with her values diminishes her sense of self. It sends a message consciously or unconsciously that her standards are flexible, that her principles can be negotiated, and that her boundaries are malleable. She refuses to internalize such a message. Instead, she holds firm, understanding that every compromise on values is a compromise on her identity. She knows that the right partner will not ask her to sacrifice her principles, but will instead support them, respect them, and even share them naturally. Ultimately, she recognizes that true love does not require surrendering one's values. It amplifies them. A queen chooses connections that reinforce her integrity, that celebrate her principles, and that contribute to a life of authenticity, purpose, and fulfillment. She does not accept anything less because she understands the cost, diminished respect, emotional fatigue, and a life lived below her potential. By refusing to settle, she sets a standard not just for her relationships, but for her life as a whole. In the end, a woman with a queen mindset demonstrates through her choices that values are sacred. She knows that alignment is not negotiable, and she navigates relationships with clarity, courage, and self-respect. Her commitment to living in accordance with her principles ensures that she attracts the right people, fosters meaningful connections, and embodies the true essence of a queen, someone who loves deeply but never compromises the integrity of her soul. A woman with a queen mindset never waits for validation or permission to define her own worth. She understands that her value is intrinsic, born from who she is, not from what others think, say, or provide. In a world where external approval is often mistaken for affirmation, she refuses to be swayed by fleeting compliments, criticisms, or the conditional acceptance of others. She knows that waiting for someone else's recognition is a path to dependency, frustration, and diminished self-esteem. Her confidence comes from an internal wellspring, a clarity of self, a deep understanding of her principles, and a commitment to living in alignment with her highest potential. Too often, women seek validation in relationships, hoping that a man's admiration, approval, or love will confirm that they are enough. But a queen understands that this is an illusion. External validation is inconsistent, unpredictable, and often shaped by the other person's needs, fears, or insecurities, rather than the truth of who she is. To rely on it is to give away her power. She refuses to measure her worth through someone else's lens. She defines it herself, consciously and deliberately, grounded in self-awareness, integrity, and purpose. By not seeking validation, she frees herself from the subtle chains of people-pleasing. She does not modify her behavior, compromise her voice, or hide her essence to make someone feel comfortable or impressed. She knows that authenticity is magnetic, and that true respect and admiration are drawn naturally to those who live fully and unapologetically as themselves. A queen does not need constant affirmation. She carries her own approval and recognition wherever she goes. Her refusal to wait for permission also speaks to her autonomy and self-responsibility. She understands that she is the author of her life story, the architect of her identity, and the curator of her experiences. She does not wait for anyone to give her permission to pursue her dreams, to express her opinions, or to step into her power. She takes decisive action because she understands that life rewards clarity, courage, and initiative. Waiting for validation is a passive strategy that undermines her growth, while self-approval creates momentum and attracts opportunities aligned with her values and vision. Furthermore, this mindset shapes the way she navigates relationships. A queen does not base her emotional well-being on another person's approval or affection. She does not tolerate partners who attempt to manipulate her with praise, criticism, or conditional love. She recognizes these dynamics as attempts to control or influence her sense of self, and she disengages from them. By maintaining her own standard of worth, she ensures that any relationship she engages in is based on mutual respect, shared values, and authentic connection, rather than dependency or insecurity. A woman with a queen mindset also serves as a model for others. By demonstrating self-validation, she inspires those around her to recognize their own intrinsic value. She shows that confidence is not arrogance, that self-respect is not selfishness, and that true strength comes from clarity and belief in oneself. Her life becomes a testament to the principle that no one else can define her, and that her power lies in owning her worth fully, without hesitation or apology. Ultimately, she moves through the world with a sense of freedom, agency, and authority. She does not wait to be acknowledged, loved, or praised because she already knows her value. She acts from a place of inner certainty, attracting people, opportunities, and experiences that honor her for exactly who she is. In doing so, she embodies the essence of a queen, self-assured, empowered, and unwavering in her commitment to live a life defined by her own terms.